From freezing Tibetan monasteries to freezing cold ice warrior spaceships, the Doctor's had a pretty rough go of it over the last few serials in the weather department. Perhaps that might explain his absurdly childish behaviour at the start of this story, literally acting like a kid on Christmas at the sight of a sun-soaked sandy beach. Seriously, he skips along the sand, frolicking happily, starts ripping off outer layers of clothes and diving straight on in for a swim before poor Jamie and Victoria even have a chance to adjust to their new surroundings, this new environment. And what is this new environment? Well, it's the most dangerous and toxic land the Doctor has ever faced before. That's right. The TARDIS has finally brought the Doctor to Australia. I doubt if he'll make it out alive. The Enemy of the World is, you guessed it, a 6-part serial taking us from 1967 into 1968, this time set in the year 2018, and although they initially do land in Australia, they quickly make their way elsewhere in the world. Thank goodness! Don't know if I could have handled much more of those Australian accents. Oh, I didn't say they were inaccurate, I just can't stand Australian accents. I know that's pretty rich coming from a Kiwi, but we do love our Australian neighbours. Okay, so what we've got here is an espionage thriller capitalising on the recently released 5th James Bond film, You Only Live Twice, which is funny considering, Doctor Who, second incarnation of a seemingly infinite number of regenerations. Anyway, that's all according to Wikipedia at least. I tried so hard to make this video without using the word espionage, but it was just too difficult. It's such a generic, all-encompassing blanket term that it pretty much fits the bill when discussing this kind of story. Essentially, the big gimmick, or should I say the big thing that this serial is known for, is it stars Patrick Troughton in a dual role. Not only does he play the excitable second Doctor, but also the sinister French, German, Mexican, the weird accented salamander. I honestly couldn't tell you what accent he was trying to go for, but you can tell that Patrick Troughton was having an absolute blast playing both roles. So the story goes a little something like this. The TARDIS takes the Doctor and co to some random Australian beach where he has a little swim, and then some Aussies with guns try and kill him. A typical warm Australian welcome, I'm sure, in 2018. They escape with the help of a woman with big hair, the Australians explode, and they escape to Europe. Nowhere specific, just Europe. This is where they learn the situation. The world is, once again, just like the Ice Warriors, on the verge of a global crisis. Apparently, their whole planet is running low on food, and this salamander guy is apparently very good at providing said food, leading to a very popular public image of him. So why do so many people, including those who rescued the Doctor, hate him so much? That's exactly what the Doctor wants to know, and his uncanny resemblance to Salamander is the key to finding out why. I hesitate to call the choice to cast Troughton in both roles a thoughtless gimmick, because it's used consistently throughout the story, unlike remember there was like a First Doctor story? I think it was The Massacre. Can't quite tell. I know I didn't enjoy it that much, so it must have been The Massacre, where old Bill played 2 characters in the story, but it didn't amount to anything. It didn't interfere with the plot at all, aside from, I think, one line of dialogue from Stephen, who was like, hey, you look just like him. And the character dies, like, 2 seconds after being introduced as well. William Hartnell didn't even change his acting style at all. Whereas Pat revels in playing the sinister, sleazy character with a bizarre accent. Back to the story. Because there's a lot going on with heaps of different characters and allegiances and such, I'll try and keep it vague and simple for spoiler purposes. Essentially, you've got the bad guy Salamander, who's really good at covering up his dirty deeds, and a few people who want to expose him. The Doctor, being more of a pacifist, is straight up against killing him, so he wants a bit more like tangible proof in order to, see if this person's really worth taking down, so he does a lot of impersonating. And with the 2 characters looking identical, aside from hair and clothing, which does change throughout the episode, so, it does a great job of keeping both viewers and side characters on their toes. Also, speaking of side characters, I gotta show some love to that overly cynical chef. He was absolutely hilarious. Normally I find overly sarcastic and pessimistic characters frustrating to watch, but he wasn't on screen for long enough to get annoying, and he just absolutely nailed it. His sarcasm was spot on. there's a pretty major plot twist, or more unexpected story development that happens partway through episode 4 that really adds a whole new layer of despicability to Salamander, which I won't spoil for you, but I will say when the underground bunker is introduced, like, it reinvigorated my interest in the plot, which is important when you have a 6-part story. You know, sitting down to watch nearly 2.5 hours of classic Doctor Who in a day, like, sometimes that can be tough. Thankfully, this one is above average. I did find myself tuning out a few times just with so many characters trying to figure out what they already knew. It was easy to lose track of, like, whose allegiances they belong to. I reckon Enemy of the World could be good for a rewatch, you know, picking up more plot details and better understanding characters' motivations more. Watching Salamander's despicable, deceitful behaviour made me think of how, like, in movies and TV shows like this one, there are these villains who hide behind their phony, fake, positive public persona, kind of like celebrities and influencers. But then in the real world, you get these villainous types that don't even attempt to hide their terrible true colours, and people still choose to love them for it anyway. Kind of bums you out and really makes you think. Anyway, sorry to get depressing there for a second. Let's end on a more positive note, shall we? There's a brief moment in the story where the Doctor, disguised as Salamander, has to convince Jamie that he is in fact the Doctor and not this evil dictator, so he mimes along playing his signature flute and just whistles the tune. Turns out Jamie made him leave it in the TARDIS. Thank you, Jamie! Burn that damn thing! And you know what? The Doctor's a pretty good whistler, and it doesn't blow your eardrums out like the flute does, so why can't we just have the Doctor whistle in the future? Please? Is that too much to hope for? Well, as we end this review, I should probably mention the ending of the story. It abruptly ends quite suddenly, but not before another awesome final confrontation, which I won't spoil, but I will say leads to quite a significant cliffhanger. The TARDIS doors are open mid-flight, with the Doctor and Victoria clinging on to the console for dear life, but what about Jamie? Well, if I know my classic Doctor Who cliffhangers, it probably won't amount to anything at all, but we'll find out next week. And what a week it's gonna be. After only 2 serials, we're back with the Yetis in The Web of Fear. Now, I already know the second release of this serial has quite the, let's just say, negative reputation about it, so I'm quite nervous and excited to get into that one. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you'll see me next week.